Hey guys, what's up, everybody? It's Velocity Pete here with another episode of the Velocity Sellers Podcast. Woo. Today I'm joined by two PPC experts, and if you don't know what that means, it stands for pay per click or Amazon advertising experts. If you guys both want to introduce yourselves, Chris, you want to start, give us a little bit about yourself and your qualifications, sort of, I guess, to be on the podcast with about talking about PPC and advertising, I guess you could say.
Yeah, my name's Chris. I've been playing with Amazon advertising since 2014. I'm with the director of advertising of Velocity Sellers right now. And yeah.
I hear you've won some awards for advertising.
I was up for an award, yeah. I did not end up winning, but my numbers were better than the winner, so that was good.
There you go. That's a win in my book. And Phoebe?
Hi, I'm Phoebe. I've been working in advertising for about 3 years now. I currently manage Amazon PPC for Velocity. I'm a account manager. I manage clients across different countries.
Very nice. Welcome. It's great to have you both here on the show. I'm really excited to get into sort of the weeds about the basics, sort of get the foundation from two experts on the topic. Really, anybody maybe starting out or maybe they're restarting or anything like that, really where to start from. So with that being said, I think we just go right into it. Can you kind of, Chris, give a quick explanation of the whole, I know this is a big question, but the whole pay-per-click system? Like, what is Amazon's strategy with advertising? How do they come about this? And what does really it mean to pay per click?
Yeah, so pay-per-click advertising on Amazon is a second-tier auction, which means you pay 1 penny more than the person who bid the next highest amount below you. So if I bid $1, they bid 55 cents, I'd pay 56 cents. And that's how the auction works. And the point of it is to increase your sales volume and your conversion rate with the advertising to help your organic rank go up in keywords and categories across Amazon.
If I bid $1 and the next guy only bids 56 cents, I bid 57 and not the full $1.
Google used to be on the equal pay. So if you bid $1, you spend $1. On Amazon, it's a second tier auction.
Phoebe, how important would you say advertising is for any seller on Amazon? Is this absolutely essential? Something that you maybe should look into? Like, what's on a scale of 1 to 10? How important is advertising?
I think advertising's one of the most important aspects within Amazon because almost everyone does do advertising, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to reach the top of the page or at any page. So if you jump on Amazon, you have no reviews, nothing going on within the account, no sales yet. The only way you're going to be able to reach an audience is within the advertising, because obviously you'll go to the bottom of the page if you're the one that's not doing it and everyone else is.
I feel like I've spoken to a couple people that we talk to, and they're always like, I don't really do advertising. I get enough money off of or organic sales. And they're like, oh, I save all that money on advertising, like not having to pay Amazon for every click and every sale and that kind of thing. Do you think, Chris or Phoebe, both of you really, is the return on investment for advertising, does that make it worth it?
Yeah, I think they definitely need to, because if they don't advertise, you index in a certain amount of keywords on Amazon, and that's coming from your listing, your title, your bullet points, your back-end search terms. But it's a very slow expansion if you don't advertise, because it's just a matter of people searching for you and finding you, 2 or 3 pages down in order for you to gain that keyword. With advertising, you can scale it up much quicker by advertising on certain keywords that are relevant to your product. And then when people purchase, you'll now be available to shop in all those different keywords across Amazon.
How does someone get a better spot on a keyword through advertising? So obviously you can, Chris, like you said, put them in your keywords and your bullet points and people can find them. But what exactly does advertising do to your rank?
Well, what it'll do is rank is based on conversion rate and sales volume. So if you bid on a keyword and you bid high on it, or you put a top of search increase percentage on it to make it appear at the top of the page at all times, then you will sell there, which will then boost your organic rank because your conversion rate in that keyword is getting better and better, which tells Amazon that you sell well there. And so they'll boost you up. And with the goal, obviously, of being in the top 5, because that's where the majority of sales on Amazon come from.
You can also do that in category targeting as well. So then you reach high up in a specific category.
Yeah. All right. Before I get too far into the weeds of like some of the maybe the more intermediate stuff, I want to go back to really just again the foundation. Right, that's what we're here to talk about is how a new person or how someone restarting can really set a good foundation for their advertising. When you have when we get a partner that's new to Amazon, like what are some of the first things you do when setting up those campaigns? Like what's the process for going about that?
Yeah, so typically when I set up for a new client, if let's assume they have nothing running currently, I like to use auto campaigns because then that allows Amazon to place it where it thinks it belongs, and sometimes that can be very useful because Amazon can get those into places you wouldn't normally get. And then I also like to use a lot of broad match, like research campaigns, broad match, phrase match targeting, in order to gather new keywords to target later on. And then also I like ASIN targeting a lot when you get going because then you can see who you're converting against, what price point are they,
Mm-hmm.
how many star ratings are they at, and then you can take that information and analyze it further and see where do they rank, and then you can go for those keywords because if you convert against that competitor, then you can convert in all the keywords they rank well in, and that's a good
Mm-hmm.
foundation to build up off of is those research style campaigns.
So starting off with like the sort of this like letting Amazon kind of figure out what works for you, kind of thing, in a sense, especially with those auto campaigns,
To a degree, and then
like
I
getting
also
them
like to
started.
drive some
Yeah.
exact match for if like if you're selling a garlic press, I would definitely go
Mm-hmm.
exact match garlic press to push to show the algorithm this is where I want to be.
Yeah. Let's get into the sort of like the weeds with the campaigns a little bit. So talking about like and I hate to go so I know you guys are very very high level thinkers here with the advertising, but if you're going to explain it to someone who's in 5th grade, like what is a campaign? Like what is included in there? I know there's different like match types like you mentioned already, broad and exact match. Like let's get into a little bit about how a campaign is structured and how it drives traffic and sales and conversions to you.
There's several different types of campaigns. So there's sponsored product, sponsored brand, sponsored display. I think that's a big starting point of whether you choose what campaign type you want to use, and then you get to choose what phrase type that it's in. Either you can do ASINs, broad, phrase, and exact, and then there's different reasons why you would use each of them. Kind of what Chris just went on a little bit about. And then in sponsored brand, you can do video ads. It's kind of where you want your placement to be, where you want to stand within Amazon. Sponsored product is probably the biggest ones that you start with. And then videos, if you have some good videos, you can throw those in there as well because that helps with conversion typically.
Yeah, it's
And those
highly
are
dependent upon the client's budget as well. If they have good video already and they want to get into those higher placement, like the headline ads, which are typically a higher cost per click than the sponsored products, you can go all in like that. Or if you don't have such a big budget, more conservative seller, you start out with sponsored product ads and kind of expand out from there.
I've definitely seen the 3 of them before. I know those are, I guess, the big 3, right? That you'd say exist in the space. Phoebe, you mentioned that sponsored products are probably going to be your best sellers, correct? Like they're going to be the ones that bring in the most conversions. Is there any particular reason for that, or is that just kind of how it works? Like what drives conversions the most on those type of campaigns? Do you think?
well, within sponsored products, their cost per clicks are typically lower. So you're able to spend more and make more in that way.
They
Very
also
nice.
another good thing about Amazon is they make their sponsored product ads look just like a regular product on Amazon. They look native to the platform. They don't look like an advertisement. In fact, a lot of times you can't even tell that they are, except for the little sponsored sign in the bottom. And so that's a good thing too, because it doesn't people aren't looking at it like it's a commercial or an advertisement to them. It just looks right alongside the other products. It looks natural in the environment, which is a great way to get clicks.
Yeah, well, while we're on the topic of that, another thing I was going to bring up was kind of where Amazon places these ads. Since we brought up the whole thing about the sponsored product, brand, and display, could you both kind of go into a little bit about maybe where each of these products lands on the page? Like, where is someone going to see a sponsored product ad? Where is someone going to see a sponsored display ad? I know there's a couple different locations I want to say for them. Obviously, you see the ones at the very top of the page that have the different brands on there, or like on a listing underneath the buy box like that. But just exactly kind of where are we seeing these types of ads?
Right now, they're all over the place. Amazon has
Mhm.
really opened up, compared to 10 years ago. Um, but sponsored products are typically found on Amazon. They're actually starting to appear off Amazon now as well. But they're mostly on Amazon. They'll be right on page in search. You can also target, so they'll be below the bullet points. That'll be your product targeting. Sponsored brands are typically the headline ads at the top. They also have some other placements at the bottom, especially for video. And then sponsored display is going to be on and off Amazon, and they appear in different places around the page. You'll see a tiny banner at the top or a banner over on the left-hand side. That's typically sponsored display. And then, as I said, off Amazon and on wherever Amazon has a presence on the web.
Very interesting. Off Amazon, so you can run Amazon ads and they can show up somewhere that isn't Amazon now. Like, is that something new? Like, what are we getting into there?
The sponsored product one is fairly new. Sponsored display has been like that for a long time. It's basically like a watered down version of DSP that they're bringing over onto the regular platform.
You got to understand the data that's coming in, right? You got to look at kind of where is my money going to? How successful is it? What's happening with my clicks? You know, where are people going? Are they bouncing off the page? If you could quickly just give us a quick, like, overview again. I hate to use the same phrase over and over again, but just a quick overview of the different metrics and probably, so I guess to say the top 3 or 4 most important ones that you need to keep an eye on. Obviously, you want to check all of them, but what are the ones that are really going to show you, like, hey, here's how your campaigns are doing. Here's how your advertising budget's being spent and how effective it is.
So I think something that's really important to be aware of is the advertising cost of sales versus the total advertising cost of sales, which is the ACOS versus TACOS. And the advertising cost of sales is basically a measure of efficiency within the campaigns, and the total advertising cost of sales is a measurement that makes it more easily able to scale within advertising. And then the other important metrics that I personally look at are the click-through rate. That's important to tell if you're reaching the right pages. So if you have a higher click-through rate, that means you're getting people to see your ad and they're clicking on your ad because they think it's relevant to what they searched. And then ACOS is, of course, important because of efficiency. And then impressions is also pretty important to see how many pages that you're reaching. And then that's where the click-through rate kind of goes back hand in hand.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at metrics, it also depends heavily on the goal of the account. Because if you're in a launch situation, your goals and the metrics you're looking at might be completely different than if you're a seasoned seller. For example, in a launch, I'm looking at impressions. I want a lot of impressions. I want to be out there. I want to get exposure. As opposed to somebody who's been selling for 5 years on Amazon, it might be more important to look at profitability and your click-through rate and make sure you're efficient across the board in terms of, or instead of going for that exposure. So you might look at getting your cost per click down, and so that's your main metric on a longer running account versus impressions and an actual number of clicks in a newer campaign, for example.
So yeah, different goals I would definitely think would warrant different levels of TACOS. And I know, in my opinion, with my experience, I think TACOS is the better metric to look at. I'm not denying the importance of ACOS, but I think TACOS definitely would be more a better idea of really how you're doing, again, and then as the name implies, in totality.
It's a measure of profitability.
Yeah, right. For but not just for advertising, right? For the whole, for total sales. Yeah. Measuring that, like, is it looking at, like, when you start out, you want to be more competitive. Like, you definitely want to claim a lot more market share, right? Like, what level of TACOS do you think people should be at? Like, I know Amazon recommends 8 to 14, I think now. I'm sure that's always changing as well. But
yeah, the average
somewhere
on Amazon,
around that range.
The average I see across most accounts is 8 to 14%. And it used to be we'd say go up to 12 to 15%, but now that Amazon's become more pay to play, I'm definitely seeing more accounts, especially when they're just launching, going up to 20 to 25% TACOS. And ACOS we might not even pay attention to at all because it's maybe better to be not efficient when you're first launching your product on Amazon. Just throwing it out there, seeing where you stick and land, and then dial that back in as time goes on, to become more efficient. And then also same with the TACOS to dial in your profitability after you've kind of got your exposure.
Like, it takes a little bit to get going, but once you get the ball rolling, once the flywheel starts spinning, it's a whole lot easier to really keep that efficiency going. Obviously, Q4 is a whole different beast, but I would say maybe during the year, is it leading up to Q4, like January through September. Is that does that make sense? Like, is it easier to keep the flywheel spinning after you sort of gotten to a certain point, or is it just a constant uphill battle all year?
It is easier, and and a little bit off subject, but it kind of advertising is going to correlate with your listing, your title, how well your images look, and all that stuff. So the better you have all of those things set up, that will make that easier too. It'll be more efficient because if your listing is set up properly, people will naturally want to buy it. We're just putting people in front of it, and the listing is the thing, and the images especially that actually sell the product.
Say, I think it's important to also look at market trends, because sometimes you will trend downward and there's nothing that you can really do no matter how much advertising you push towards it. If it's just a product that's no longer really selling anymore, if it was a product that was popular for a certain time period and it's no longer popular, then that's important to look at as well.
Yeah, so you mentioned Phoebe. You mentioned market trend. I know that is definitely important to maybe seeing how much you pay. Like, what do you look at to assess that? Like, how do you kind of measure like something's in a downward trend or something's on the rise right now? Like, let's crank the bids up, kind of thing.
I think there's a lot of different platforms that you could look at, but I think the bigger one is going to be viral launch, and merchant words are where you can see more in depth about what's going on with certain specific keywords.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah,
So
and then you
then,
can also go as far as to look at Google
yeah.
Trends as well, which doesn't correlate exactly one-to-one with Amazon because Amazon's a shopping platform, Google's not. But you can see the trend of what people are searching. So if you incorporate viral launch market intelligence, for example, which gives great data, Helium has that data as well, and then Google Trends. And if you kind of combine all three of those things together, you can get a pretty good idea of what's happening in the overall market and whether maybe you should scale back on your bidding or increase if the season, if the trend line is going up or down.
If you see something that's like viral's telling us that there's a really big increase in some product search trend, like what do you guys do to the campaigns to account for that and maybe to grab some of that, a lot more of that market share that's coming in now and a lot more of them searches?
Yeah, so we just adjust based on the keywords that be most relevant for the product in that trend that we're seeing. Top of search placements, of course. There's a very useful report called the Impression Share Report within the Advertising Council, and you can look in there and see what percentage of the impression share you hold as an advertiser for that product. And then based off that, you can increase your bids and go for more exposure to get the sales there in those keywords.
But I wanted to talk also about bid adjustments, kind of like what are they? How important are they? Like how often should you do them? Phoebe, like where do you make the most bid adjustments in your campaigns? Like, is it just throughout the whole thing? And how often kind of do you go about doing it?
I think it's definitely important to continuously adjust your bids within all your accounts. So I usually adjust most accounts once, if not twice weekly. There's an amount where you can do it too often. You're not going to get any real data because you don't understand the data. So if you're constantly changing the bid, then you're not going to know what was working and what wasn't working. I think that's really important to know.
What are the different strategies that you think about that go into sort of saying like, okay, I'm going to adjust this bid, I'm going to lower it because I think we can spend less, or I'm going to move it up that way we can claim the top spot? Like, what are you looking at to really make that decision on where to adjust the bid to?
I think there's a lot of things that you have to look at. So I think one big thing is going to be click-through rate. So if it's getting a lot of clicks, but it has a really good click-through rate, I might up it if we're trying to spend more money within the account. If the account's tacos is already at their maximum amount that they want to be at, then I'm going to keep those high click-through rate keywords at where they're at, and then lower the ones that don't have as high of a click-through rate, to give those ones with a higher click-through rate a better chance. Anything else you want to?
Yeah, and then ACOS also, going back to ACOS, that's a very important one just for any bid adjustment. Obviously, the efficiency of the keyword. If it's a strong keyword you feel is really relevant, your ACOS is kind of high, you still might want to go for it just to always have kind of exposure there. But at the same time, if it's not as relevant a keyword and your ACOS is kind of high, then I would dial back the bid. And you can be as aggressive as you want with the bid adjustments. We typically do more incremental here. So you're talking like between 10 cents and 50 cents typically, but if you have the budget and you want to go more aggressively into it, you can definitely adjust bids by $1 or $2, that once or twice a week. And like Phoebe said, you definitely don't want to overdo that. It's good to establish a nice baseline of what has been working.
I know a lot of people that we talk to do a little bit of either no negating at all on the keywords, or they negate words that maybe are bringing in really big money for them, and they're just like, I don't like this word anymore or something. I don't know. But before we even get into the tips on negating, what is it? if I look at an account and they have they have negative keywords, or they're negating some keywords, like what does that mean to a campaign? What does that mean for advertising?
So those come from the customer search terms, which is different than the targets. So if you're targeting garlic press, for example, that's a word in your campaign that you're specifically bidding on. The customer search term might be like large garlic press. It's something they've searched that connected with your ad through either a broader phrase match link there in the advertising. And so negating would be if the large garlic press and you sold a small garlic press, it didn't apply, and so you're getting a lot of wasted spend and no conversions from it. A lot of clicks, no conversions. You would negate the large garlic press keyword, so there's no longer any ad spend going to that keyword.
I think another important thing to kind of put in place is that there's phrase and exact negating. So you don't have to just put it in an exact match. There's also a phrase match. So maybe I would use a phrase match for a branded term, and I would just put the brand directly in there because I want that specific campaign to be non-branded at all and only focus on direct keywords rather than the brand at all. So then I would put that in phrase match rather than exact, because now that word in any form could be negated within the campaign. So then you have accurate data based off non-branded terms. Of course, you also want to target branded keywords as well for different reasons. But just because I'm doing that within one specific campaign doesn't mean that other campaigns don't have an opportunity to reach those targets. So if you wanted to negate garlic press within one campaign, it's just that one specific campaign isn't going to reach garlic press. But if you do it in all the campaigns, then none of them are going to reach garlic press.
So it is broken down by campaign. So I could like if I had a garlic press, what about if I even go further to say, like if I had a small and a large garlic press, and they're both being advertised for in the same campaign, and I negate the word, like the phrase, sorry, large garlic press, is that going to affect the large one within the campaign? Should maybe those be broken apart into two separate campaigns? Like what's kind of the way there? Like, can you negate them based on individual products or?
If you had multiple products in one campaign, then it would be for both products that you're negating it for. But if you put them in two individual campaigns and then you did it for one specific one, then you could do it that way.
And that's why we highly recommend segmenting your campaigns. So like if you're going to do a more generic campaign with both of those garlic presses in there, just using generic words, that's fine. But then I would also do campaigns where you just have the large and you just have the small separately, so then you can target those kind of niche keywords.
Well, that kind of brings me back to a little bit to sticking with keywords, looking at the three different types. I believe there's only three, right? The exact, broad, and phrase match. So this is we're just going so deep down the advertising rabbit hole here. We've got the different types of campaigns. So we've got sponsored brand, display, and product. Those are just the three basic ones. And now within each of those, are you able to do the different types of keywords, which are exact, phrase, and broad? And what are those keywords? Like, what does that mean to someone that doesn't even know what I'm talking about right now? Like, what exactly does it mean to have an exact keyword or a phrase keyword or a broad keyword?
Yeah, so sponsored display doesn't have any keyword targeting, so we can leave that one aside. That's more audience targeting, category targeting, ASIN targeting. But sponsored brand and sponsored products, both of those have keyword targeting in the three match types that you just said. So broad match would be if you put in red hat, and then a customer could search any kind of keyword combination that, as long as it had red and hat in there, and it would come back. In phrase match, it would have to be red hat in that exact form, but they could have other keywords on the outside of it, like large red hat, for example. And then exact match, it's just red hat. But they also include the plural there too, so it could be red hats, and it would also be included in exact match.
So if someone types in like red hat or red dog hat, like that's still going to be included in your broad match campaign, right? So I guess that would be something that you negate maybe, or
it's all dependent upon what they want to do with the campaign and the goal. Broad would be a research style or discovery campaign, so you could put that red hat out there and see what people are searching that actually buy your product, right? And then you'll have a list of those keywords that either need to be negated because it's coming up as red dog hat, which is not applicable, or it'll be coming up with a list of keywords that they are purchasing, which you want to then take and move over into an exact match campaign because you know now that they work. It's about discovery. It's not so much of a preference. It's a broad and phrase are more discovery research style, whereas exact, you know exactly what you're going for and target it.
Mm-hmm. But be honest, what's your favorite?
I like Exact.
I think it sounds like Exact is definitely the Phoebe. Are you also on Team Exact, or are you
I'm on
Phrase or
Team
Broad?
Broad. I like Broad.
Broad, really?
I like Broad.
Just for discovery purposes?
Discovery purposes.
Yeah.
To learn
I guess that.
something.
Yeah.
And it is
When
a
you put it
slightly
that way, it
cheaper
doesn't.
cost per click
Yeah.
as well. You can,
Well, yeah. Everyone likes the cheaper option, so that's definitely yeah. The auto campaign. Let's go a little more into that. Like what exactly is done for you? Like you just set up the campaign, put the products in, and then you just don't touch it anymore, or do you get to set any of those parameters? Like, is Amazon do everything?
Amazon does a lot of it. We're still going to be touching it and doing the bid adjustments within it.
Mhm.
But Amazon does put it in a placement that it wants to put the placement in. So you can do close, loose, substitute, and then it'll put those in those different targeted placements. So whether it wants to do category targeting, ASIN targeting, keyword targeting, it kind of puts it where it thinks that it belongs based on the listing. And then we can take that data and put it in different campaigns.
yeah, basically it's segmented
Interesting.
into 4 options in an auto campaign. So you have a close match, which would be, obviously very specific, more targeted towards your product. You have a loose match, which would be your longer tail stuff, or similar keywords. Then complementary targeting, which would be other ASINs, so any product that would go with it. And so those are typically the 3 that I would use within there. And then you can bid on each one of those within the auto campaign. And then all that data from the sales show up and you can harvest it and then move it over into broad match campaigns, phrase match campaigns, exact campaigns, whatever you want to do with it.
To make it okay. And you wouldn't recommend leaving an auto campaign up like after the first couple of months, right? Like
I would leave it going always.
An always going. Oh,
Yeah.
just like something that's very small bid.
Even high bid, if it's working well, sometimes I have autos I've been running for 6 years. With high bids, they just do great. Amazon's placing where they need to be placed, and why kill a good thing?
Can you overdo it on autos? Like, is that like obviously you want some manual in there too, right? Like, I mean, it's got to be a healthy mix, but
you mix it up.
I guess like if you said if you're doing good,
you don't bid against yourself. So I would get, and I'd have an auto going and manual campaigns. And there's a common practice that is kind of becoming outdated now called negate and migrate strategy, which you would run the auto, and anything that's working there you would negate in the auto and move it over to an exact match campaign. And this works the same with broad and phrase. And I don't do that either. I highly recommend against it. Because if the auto is going and they're placing it where it's converting, that's what you want. Leave it and let it go.
There's definitely a difference between just the auto campaigns and automations in general. Because some people will put on automations just for bid adjustments within the campaigns as well, which we typically will adjust the bids manually, or pretty much always will adjust the bids manually and not allow Amazon to take control of that portion of it. But Amazon's placements within the auto campaign are usually pretty well for the most part. We can gather some data.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, the next kind of topic I wanted to go into was a little bit, if you've seen our content episode, in there I mentioned a little bit about how your content affects advertising. I want to ask our Amazon experts, how effective is good content? Do you see a lot more success from, I would think, a person with better content, lifestyle images, maybe some videos. I know there's different types of video campaigns we can do where we put a video on the search results page. How effective is that, compared to maybe a listing that has only a couple images and they're kind of dinky? Like, do you really see a true stronger effect when the content's better for your advertising?
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. The image sells the product. That's the number one key thing. Then title, then bullets, and then A+ after that. And it has to be spot on. And the better it is, the more efficient your campaigns will be. And just an example, we had a client that just changed their title, just restructured it, and got 25% better or increase in sales volume just from switching the title around. So content is absolutely key. Advertising is just bringing traffic to the listing, and the listing then has to sell it. If the listing isn't good, if it's not solid, then people aren't going to buy it. They're not going to trust it. Especially in a place like Amazon where you have a lot of competitors coming in from overseas and potentially fake products and all kinds of things going on. They're going to have to trust the listing. They're going to have to trust the product in order to buy it. We just bring them there. And so the content, is absolutely crucial.
But I would think that, like you said, like a video ad or some sort of extra content level ad is going to drive things a whole lot better than the regular sponsored products or sponsored display ads kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it adds social proof to it, just like any brand, if you see billboards of them, you trust them more than a brand you don't know at all. And yes, with the video, we typically see almost double, sometimes triple the click through rate as you would in a normal ad type. So yeah, it's definitely visual is a good way to go.
When you talk to a new partner or a new account, like what are they asking? Like what questions do you get from them, and kind of what are your answers for them as well?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the account. We get a lot of if it's a very established seller, they're typically looking for profitability and efficiency. How can I be more efficient? How can I be more profitable with my ads? As opposed to a newer seller who's, how can I get more sales? They're typically more looking for volume versus efficiency at that point in the life process. So yeah, and then so we just have to dissect that and look into what they're doing, and a lot of times the problem will be as simple as they don't adjust bids often enough. Like I see a lot of times once per month or once every 6 months, or sometimes people don't adjust them at all. They just set them and don't know that they need to adjust them. And so something as simple as that, adding negative keywords, all those things it's super easy to fix an account that is not efficient. And that's where most of our clients coming in is just a matter of efficiency and profitability.
A lot of the ways that I get closer to closing a partner that I'm meeting with is telling them, hey, like you wasted upwards of like 70 to like almost like 80% of your spend in the past 60 days. And that metric comes from Chris. And what is wasted spend? And getting into a little bit about like, can you have a 0% wasted spend? Like, do you kind of need some wasted spend? But to start, like, what is it?
Yeah, wasted spend is just, I think, when you're spending too much on terms that aren't worth it, or you're just, it's just when there's a certain portion of wasted spend where I think is important, because there's always going to be wasted spend within an account. But then there's a point where it's just too much. You look into the certain campaigns and then you see a keyword with 200 clicks, no sales. You're like, why is this wasting money? So you'll go in there and you'll turn off certain terms like that and find that amount of wasted spend within the account. Chris can kind of elaborate if he has anything more.
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically to sum it up. It's just keywords with clicks and no sales. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
And then how much money, if you don't routinely check your campaigns, if you're not taking care of them, you'll have keywords like Phoebe said, they go up, you'll find them in there. They're $200 spent on this keyword. It has 100 clicks and no sales. Well, then I don't think that's where you belong, right? So it's time to take that keyword away and funnel that ad budget into keywords that are converting, which will then boost your rank. And that's the whole efficiency process, really.
Yeah, and I know, like I said, we get people in here that are like wasting like 80%. Like how does someone get to that point? Like how does someone get to the point where they're spending money on these keywords and they're just not like is it just bid adjustment? It's just simple saying you're not adjusting your bids or adjusting your keywords? Like what really drives wasted spend, would you say?
Yeah, lack of adjustment and lack of negating, as well as pausing targets too. I mean, on a higher level, you don't even have to get into the customer search term. If the keyword itself is a bad target and you're just letting it ride in the campaign, you can spend all kinds of money. You just have to look after your campaigns. You have to get in there and check every keyword. I mean, there's just no way around that, and that's why some people use automation to do that, but then you have to set rules and stuff. That's why we prefer to do it manually, because then we can look at it and say, hey, is this a good keyword? Is it worth pursuing? Or is it not a good keyword? Do we just not belong there, and we need to now negate it or pause it and funnel that ad spend into something that'll make more of a difference.
Yeah. That's where my John Henry example comes in. The automation, it sounds like, wouldn't be able to really kind of make that judgment. But whereas like a PPC manager would be able to get in there and say like, okay, like this keyword maybe isn't doing super well right now. Maybe it's a seasonal thing, right? Like it could be some factor affecting the keyword that it's not performing good right now, or maybe you got to throw it out or change it a little bit. There's a whole lot of different things that go into picking and choosing what keywords get axed and which ones don't. And it sounds like you just kind of have to be routine with them. You got to be on top of them. You got to stay with it and really make sure that you're looking at every single keyword. And that might sound tedious, but I mean, do you want to be profitable or do you want to be not? So
right, you also have to take things into account like seasonality. Seasonality
Yeah.
is very important. You don't want to axe a keyword going into Q4 that maybe could be a good keyword, right? Just because it hasn't performed so well during your window shopping season leading up to Q4, where people are shopping around but not yet purchasing.
Hmm.
So you have to. That's the other part where the human comes in and is very important. Is looking at those kind of things. Like if you have a summer seasonal product and in the spring maybe that keyword didn't perform well at all, but it probably will in the summer. You don't want to just kill it. You want to just downbid it maybe to 10 cents or something like that, and let it ride until the
Yeah.
season hits, and then go forward with it.
Yeah. And you never want to, I mean, when we kind of talked a little bit about this, right? But when do you want to pause something versus when do you want to axe it? I'm guessing the biggest thing would be seasonality, but but also that, and on that point, you don't want to axe something before the big season. So is it, or even not even pause it so much as just lower the bid down to like, a 10, like you said, 10 cents. Like if no one else is going to bid on this, I will, and I'll pay 10 cents a click, which is nothing. But when do you kind of determine when to pause things, when to cut them, when to just lower the bid?
So I use a revolving process. A lot of people, they have rules set up, and even if they're not using automation, they just use these rules. So like 10 clicks, no sales, they kill it. I don't like that at all. I prefer to downbid it first and see how it does down at lower bids, and then even if it starts getting sales, then I'll even raise the bid back up to see if maybe I just did it wasn't the season the first time, right? And then I'll let it go through this cycle before I kill it. And once it gets up to the price of the product or double, depending upon the product, or double the price of the product, if we're still not selling well, then it might be time to let it go. But if it
Mm-hmm.
operates well at a low bid, you have some keywords that are very generic that they're making sales at a very low click through rate at a very low bid, and I keep them going. If it doesn't affect my efficiency, if it doesn't affect my profitability, then fine.
All right. Uh, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you both being on here, talking about advertising, talking about PPC. This has been very helpful. I really appreciate you both coming on the show to talk about advertising.
Glad
Yeah,
to be
thanks for
here.
having us,
Thanks
Pete.
for having me.
Next time on part 2 of this advertising series, we're going to a little bit more on high level stuff, a little more advanced strategy on what you can do now that you're an established seller, and really what you can do to really just keep increasing your efficiency and profitability. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Velocity Pete, and we'll see you next time.